The marble floors of the Grand Assembly Hall reflected the colored lights from 12 different alien species. David Carter adjusted his tie one last time before walking through the massive doors. 5 years of diplomatic service had taught him many things, but today he hoped he would not need to use the most important lesson he had learned about his own species. The circular chamber stretched high above him, with representatives from across the galaxy seated in their designated areas. The hegemony had called this meeting to finalize their demands. David knew exactly what they wanted, and he knew exactly what his answer would be. Chancellor Brix stood from his elevated platform, his purple skin gleaming under the artificial lights. The Dominion leader had been pushing for this moment for months. His species controlled the largest military force in the galaxy, and he never let anyone forget it. Human representative, Brix's voice boomed through the chamber's speakers. Your government has had sufficient time to consider our reasonable requests. The outer human colonies serve no purpose under your primitive administration. They would prosper under proper hegemony guidance. David walked to the center of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Around him, representatives from 11 other species watched with various expressions. Some showed curiosity, others boredom. Most displayed the same arrogance he had grown accustomed to during his time here. Admiral Kess of the Maritime Alliance leaned forward in her seat. Her aquatic species had joined the hegemony's cause enthusiastically. The human military presents no significant challenge, she declared, her translated voice carrying through the water-filled speaking apparatus. Our combined fleets number in the thousands. Human space forces barely reach into the hundreds. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. David had heard these same arguments countless times. The aliens had studied human military capabilities extensively, or so they believed. They had counted ships, analyzed weapons, and calculated odds. Their conclusions always reached the same result. David opened his briefcase and removed a single sheet of paper. The document contained Earth's official response to the hegemony's demands. He had written it himself, choosing each word carefully. Honorable representatives, David began, his voice calm and measured. My government has indeed considered your requests thoroughly. We have examined every aspect of your proposal to annex our outer colonies and integrate our military forces under hegemony command. Chancellor Brix settled back in his seat with satisfaction. The human was finally showing proper respect for the galaxy's natural order. However, David continued, we must respectfully decline all of your demands. The chamber erupted into shocked exclamations and angry chittering from various species. David waited patiently for the noise to subside. When quiet returned, he continued speaking. Furthermore, I must deliver a message from my government that I personally hope you will take very seriously. David folded the paper and looked directly at Chancellor Brix. For 5 years, I have worked tirelessly to find peaceful solutions to our differences. I have negotiated trade agreements, resolved border disputes, and prevented conflicts through diplomatic means. Representative Geck of the Silicon Collective interrupted with a mechanical laugh. Humans and their emotional appeals. Your species lacks the logical framework necessary for galactic governance. David nodded acknowledgement but did not let the interruption derail his message. I have spent these 5 years learning about each of your species, your cultures, your strengths, and your histories. In return, you have studied our technology, our military formations, and our economic systems. Admiral Kess waved a dismissive tentacle. We know everything necessary about human capabilities. No, David replied firmly. You do not. The simple statement carried more weight than any shouting or threats could have managed. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. David took a step closer to Chancellor Brix's platform. You have observed humanity during peacetime. You have seen us negotiate, compromise, and seek reasonable solutions to complex problems. You have witnessed our patience, our willingness to find middle ground, and our preference for avoiding conflict. Weaknesses, Chancellor Brix declared. Your species lacks the backbone necessary for true leadership. What you call weakness, David said quietly, is actually restraint. The chamber fell completely silent. Every representative focused their attention on the lone human standing in the center of the hall. David's voice remained steady, but something in his tone had changed. My government has asked me to deliver this warning with absolute clarity. If you move against our colonies, if you threaten our citizens, if you force us into a corner where peaceful options no longer exist, You will discover aspects of humanity that we have worked very hard to keep buried. Representative Noth of the Crystal Confederacy laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Empty threats from a species barely capable of interstellar travel. David turned to face the crystal-based life form. Not threats, historical fact. He gestured toward the assembled representatives. Each of your species has encountered humanity during our expansion phase. You met us when we were exploring, trading and seeking friendship. You have never encountered us during wartime. Chancellor Brick stood up, his massive frame towering over the assembly. Are you suggesting that humans pose some hidden military threat? Our intelligence networks have monitored your activities for decades. Your intelligence networks, David replied, have monitored exactly what we wanted you to monitor. Admiral Kess slammed a tentacle against her speaking platform. Impossible. Our surveillance systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. David closed his briefcase with a soft click. 5 years ago, when I first arrived at this station, I hoped we would never need to have this conversation. Every negotiation, every compromise, every peaceful resolution has been an attempt to avoid showing you what humanity becomes when diplomacy fails. He walked slowly toward the chamber's exit, then stopped and turned back to face the assembly. You have 48 hours to reconsider your demands, David announced. After that period expires, if you choose to move against human space, I will no longer be able to protect you from the consequences of that decision. The chamber erupted into outraged voices from multiple species. Chancellor Bricks's voice rose above the others. You dare threaten this assembly with consequences? Your entire fleet could not challenge a single hegemony battle group. David paused at the doorway. Chancellor Bricks, with respect, you have no idea what our fleet actually consists of. He looked around the chamber one final time. I have spent 5 years trying to prevent this moment. I have negotiated in good faith, made reasonable compromises, and sought peaceful solutions to every dispute. His expression hardened slightly. But if you force us to defend ourselves, if you leave us no choice but to fight, you will learn why my species spent so much effort teaching you to see us as peaceful negotiators, rather than as the apex predators we actually are. The doors closed behind David Carter with a soft hiss, leaving the alien representatives in stunned silence. After several minutes, Chancellor Bricks began to laugh. Soon the entire assembly joined in the laughter. Admiral Kess wiped tears from her large eyes. Apex predators. These humans have remarkable imaginations. The laughter continued for several minutes before the representatives began filing out of the chamber, already making plans for the annexation of human space. President Elena Walsh finished reviewing the classified reports in her private study when the secure communication device beside her desk began flashing red. The encryption codes indicated maximum priority from the diplomatic corps, which meant David Carter had important news from the hegemony negotiations. Her chief of staff knocked twice before entering the room, his face showing the strain of being awakened in the middle of the night. Madam President, we have received Chancellor Bricks's final response to our diplomatic proposals. Walsh accepted the datapad and read through the hegemony's demands with growing anger. Complete surrender of all human colonies beyond Earth's immediate system. Integration of human military forces under alien command. Acceptance of hegemony governance over all human territories. The terms represented nothing less than the end of human independence. How long do we have before they begin military operations? She asked. Intelligence estimates indicate their fleets will reach our outer colonies within 24 hours. Her military advisor replied. Chancellor Bricks has positioned battle groups at strategic locations throughout the sector. They clearly planned this ultimatum to prevent any effective human response. President Walsh walked to her office window overlooking the capital district. The city below bustled with normal activity as millions of citizens went about their daily lives, unaware that their civilization faced an existential crisis. She had hoped this day would never come, but contingency plans had been in place for over a decade. Contact General Hayes and Admiral Rodriguez immediately, she ordered. Tell them to report to the Underground Command Center within 30 minutes. Authorization code Black Swan. The phrase Black Swan had not been spoken aloud in government circles for 15 years. It represented humanity's deepest military secret and their final option when diplomatic solutions failed. President Walsh had hoped never to use those words during her administration. The underground command facility extended 300 meters below the Capitol building, constructed during humanity's early expansion, when alien contact was still theoretical. The chamber housed command systems that officially did not exist, connected to military assets that appeared on no public records. General Patricia Hayes arrived first, carrying sealed orders she had hoped never to open. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez followed minutes later, her expression showing she understood the significance of the emergency authorization. Both officers had spent their careers preparing for this scenario, while praying it would never occur. "Ladies, the hegemony has rejected all diplomatic solutions," President Walsh announced without preamble. "They have demanded complete surrender and positioned their fleets to begin attacking our colonies within hours." David Carter's warnings were completely ignored. Admiral Rodriguez activated the command center's classified display systems, revealing tactical information that transformed the room's atmosphere. Data streams began flowing across multiple screens, showing military assets that existed far beyond public knowledge or congressional oversight. "The hegemony believes our total military capacity consists of 240 ships," Rodriguez began, reading from intelligence assessments the aliens had developed over years of observation. "This number is based on diplomatic fleet reviews, joint training exercises, and what they believe represents our complete naval inventory." General Hayes leaned forward with interest. "And our actual capabilities?" "Currently operational, we maintain 1,873 frontline combat vessels," Rodriguez replied matter-of-factly. "An additional 426 ships remain in final construction phases and could be combat-ready within 72 hours. The numbers struck President Walsh like physical blows. Even she had not been fully briefed on the extent of humanity's hidden military development. The scale of the deception operation exceeded anything she had imagined possible. "How have we concealed this level of military construction?" she asked. Admiral Rodriguez manipulated the display to show a three-dimensional map of human space. Red markers appeared throughout the region, indicating locations that had never been mentioned in any official survey or budget allocation. "Operation Deep Harbor has been running for 18 years, Rodriguez explained. "We have constructed hidden shipyards in asteroid fields, dead systems, and the empty spaces between star clusters. Every major corporation has contributed resources through research and development contracts that appear to fund civilian projects." President Walsh studied the tactical implications with growing amazement. "The entire galaxy believes humanity possesses a small defensive fleet. More precisely, ma'am, they have been observing our system patrol forces and diplomatic escorts," Rodriguez confirmed. "Our actual military has remained completely hidden from all foreign intelligence networks. The hegemony has never encountered a single ship from our real fleet." General Hayes accessed additional files showing technological specifications that defied the aliens' understanding of human capabilities. "These vessels incorporate advances that we have never shared through diplomatic channels." "Correct. While we have participated in limited technology exchanges, our most significant innovations have remained classified," Rodriguez said. "The hegemony's assessment of human military technology is based entirely on what we chose to reveal during peaceful interactions." President Walsh absorbed this information while contemplating the strategic situation. The aliens had demanded surrender based on their belief that humanity possessed minimal military capabilities. They had positioned their fleets accordingly, expecting easy conquest of defenseless colonies. "Recommendations?" she asked. General Hayes was the first to respond. "We should attempt immediate negotiation from a position of strength. If we reveal our true military capacity, the hegemony may reconsider their aggressive stance." "Negative," Admiral Rodriguez interjected firmly. "Our strategic advantage depends entirely on maintaining operational security. The moment we reveal our capabilities through diplomatic channels, every alien intelligence service will begin developing countermeasures." The Admiral activated additional displays showing hegemony fleet positions throughout the sector. "Their forces are currently positioned based on their assumptions about human weakness. They have scattered their strength to occupy multiple colonies simultaneously, believing we cannot respond effectively." President Walsh understood the implications immediately. "They have divided their forces because they believe we pose no real threat." "Exactly. If we strike now, we can defeat their scattered battle groups individually before they can consolidate their strength," Rodriguez confirmed. "However, this requires immediate authorization for full military deployment." The president walked around the command center, studying tactical displays that revealed the true scope of humanity's preparedness for galactic warfare. Every calculation, every strategic assessment, and every diplomatic interaction had been conducted while concealing their actual capabilities. "What are the risks of revealing our true strength?" she asked. "The end of human anonymity in galactic affairs," General Hayes replied soberly. "Once we demonstrate these capabilities, every species in the galaxy will view humanity as a major military power. There will be no returning to our previous status as a minor civilization." Admiral Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "Additionally, some alien species may choose to form defensive alliances specifically to counter human expansion. We will be viewed as a potential threat regardless of our actual intentions." President Walsh considered the alternatives while reviewing David Carter's final diplomatic reports. The hegemony had rejected every reasonable compromise, dismissed every warning, and positioned themselves to attack human families. Diplomatic solutions had been exhausted. "Admiral Rodriguez, you have full authorization to activate all deep harbor protocols," she announced. "General Hayes, begin immediate deployment of our defensive forces to protect every human colony." She turned to address both officers directly. David Carter spent 5 years trying to prevent this moment through peaceful negotiation. He warned the hegemony repeatedly about the consequences of forcing humanity into a corner. They have chosen not to listen. President Walsh activated the secure communication system to contact David Carter at the New Geneva station. His image appeared on the display, showing the strain of his failed diplomatic efforts. "David, what is the current situation?" she asked. "They are completely convinced of human weakness," Carter replied grimly. "Chancellor Briggs has scheduled their first attacks to begin in 8 hours. They believe they are dealing with a primitive species that cannot mount effective resistance. Can you provide any additional delay?" "No, ma'am. They have made their decision based on their assessment of human military capabilities. They see this as a simple police action against an inferior civilization." President Walsh closed the communication channel and faced the two officers, who would transform humanity's relationship with the galaxy forever. "Ladies, we are no longer hiding behind diplomatic courtesy and peaceful intentions," she declared. "The hegemony has chosen to threaten our families and attack our colonies. Show them exactly what humans become when forced to fight for their survival." As alarms began sounding throughout the command facility, hidden bases across human space started revealing ships that had waited years for this moment. The galaxy was about to discover what apex predators looked like when their young were threatened. Sunrise came early to Haven's Rest, painting the agricultural colony in shades of gold and amber that reminded the settlers of Earth's wheat fields. Maria Santos finished her morning inspection of the grain processing facilities, checking production schedules that would feed 3 other human colonies in the outer territories. Life on Haven's Rest moved at a peaceful pace that many colonists preferred to the bustling activity of the core worlds. The colony's early warning system detected the incoming ships at 6:47 local time. Commander Derek Walsh, the settlement's military liaison, received the automated alert in his small office overlooking the main residential district. The display showed multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven system. "This is Haven Control to approaching vessels," Derek transmitted on the standard communication frequencies. "Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came in the form of energy weapons fire that destroyed Haven's Rest communications array before Derek could send a second message. Through his office window, he watched the colony's modest defensive satellites explode in brilliant flashes against the morning sky. Commander Thek observed the human settlement from the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion battleship Inevitable Victory. The colony consisted of approximately 30,000 humans spread across agricultural zones, residential areas, and light industrial facilities. Intelligence reports indicated minimal military presence and no significant defensive capabilities. "Target the spaceport first," Thek ordered his weapons officer. "Destroy any vessels attempting to leave the surface." 3 civilian transport ships had begun emergency takeoff procedures when the hegemony fleet arrived. The ships carried approximately 800 colonists, mostly children and elderly residents being evacuated according to standard emergency protocols. They never reached orbit. Maria Santos felt the ground shake as the spaceport exploded in a massive fireball that sent debris raining across the settlement. Through her facility's windows, she could see families running toward emergency shelters that had been constructed during the colony's early days. The shelters could protect against natural disasters, but they had never been designed to withstand military bombardment. All civilian vessels attempting to flee the planet will be destroyed, Commander Thek announced over open communication channels. Human residents of this world have been classified as enemy combatants and will be treated accordingly. Derek Walsh grabbed his emergency communication equipment and ran toward the colony's central command bunker. As the settlement's only military officer, he had been trained for this scenario but had never believed it would actually occur. The hegemony's reputation for honorable warfare had led most humans to believe that any conflict would follow established galactic conventions. The bunker's blast doors sealed behind him as Derek activated the colony's emergency beacon. The quantum-encrypted message would reach Earth instantly, carrying complete tactical information about the attacking force. More importantly, it would carry video evidence of what happened next. Commander Thek's tactical display showed the human colony's defensive capabilities in detail. The settlement possessed no military weapons, no shield generators, and no fleet assets. The single human officer had barricaded himself in a command bunker that posed no threat to the hegemony forces. "Sir, the colony has surrendered," his communications officer reported. "They are requesting civilian evacuation under galactic warfare conventions." "Negative," Thek replied without hesitation. "Chancellor Brix's orders are explicit. This demonstration must convince other human colonies to surrender immediately. Show no weakness." The bombardment began systematically, targeting residential districts first to maximize psychological impact. Hegemony doctrine emphasized the importance of breaking enemy morale through overwhelming displays of force. The aliens had used these tactics successfully against other species for centuries. Maria Santos died trying to shield a group of children in her processing facility's emergency shelter. The building's collapse killed 17 people instantly, including her and 6 children under the age of 10. Similar scenes played out across the colony as hegemony forces targeted civilian infrastructure with methodical precision. Derek Walsh watched the slaughter through his bunker's external cameras, recording everything while transmitting live feeds back to Earth. His messages to the attacking fleet requesting mercy for civilians went unanswered. After 2 hours of bombardment, Haven's Rest no longer functioned as a living colony. The final phase of the attack began when transport ships landed and deployed hegemony ground forces. These soldiers had been trained for occupation duties, expecting to secure a surrendered population and establish administrative control. Instead, they found themselves walking through a graveyard. Commander Thek reviewed the casualty reports with satisfaction. 3,000 human civilians killed, military resistance eliminated, and infrastructure destroyed according to plan. The demonstration would serve as a powerful message to other human colonies, considering resistance to hegemony rule. "Broadcast the results on all frequencies," Thek ordered. "I want every human settlement to understand the consequences of defying galactic authority." On Earth, President Walsh received Derek Walsh's final transmission at 4:23 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The message contained complete tactical information about the hegemony attack, video evidence of the civilian massacre, and Derek's last words before his bunker was destroyed by orbital bombardment. "They showed no mercy," Derek's voice crackled through static interference. "They targeted children, families, everyone. This wasn't warfare, it was murder. Tell Admiral Rodriguez that Haven's Rest is gone, but we got everything on record. Make them pay for what they did here." The transmission ended when a direct energy blast vaporized the command bunker and everyone inside. Admiral Rodriguez received authorization for Operation Nemesis at 4:31 a.m. Within minutes, quantum-encrypted messages began flowing to hidden bases throughout human space. Ships that had remained concealed for years started their activation sequences, while crews who had trained in secret reported to battle stations. President Walsh's emergency address to the nation lasted exactly 90 seconds. She stood behind the presidential podium, her face reflecting the controlled fury that every human citizen would remember for generations. "At dawn this morning, hegemony forces attacked the civilian colony of Haven's Rest," she announced. 3,000 men, women, and children were murdered by enemy forces who refused to honor surrender attempts and ignored all established conventions of warfare. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle across the watching population. "The hegemony has chosen to conduct itself as a terrorist organization rather than a legitimate government. They have targeted our families, murdered our children, and demonstrated that diplomacy with their kind is impossible. The president's expression hardened as she delivered her final statement. Admiral Rodriguez, you have full authorization to show the galaxy exactly what happens to anyone who threatens human families. There will be no mercy. There will be no quarter. There will be no survivors among those responsible for Haven's Rest. Across human space, hidden shipyards began launching vessels that had never appeared on any official registry. Admiral Rodriguez's flagship, the Retribution, emerged from a concealed base in the asteroid belt of a dead system, leading a battle group whose existence the hegemony had never suspected. The aliens had crossed a line that David Carter had spent 5 years warning them not to approach. They had turned humanity's greatest strength, their love for their families and their children, into an unstoppable weapon directed against anyone foolish enough to threaten what humans held most dear. Commander Thek would live for approximately 18 more hours, just long enough to understand his mistake. Deep in the Kepler mining region, automated systems detected movement in the supposedly empty asteroid field designated as Survey Zone 7 Alpha. What the hegemony's intelligence networks had, classified as barren space for over a decade, suddenly erupted with activity as massive structures began emerging from concealed positions. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as her fleet completed its assembly for the first time in 15 years. The Retribution stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its hull lined with weapon systems that no alien species had ever encountered in battle. Around her, 47 additional capital ships took formation, each one representing technological advances that human scientists had developed in absolute secrecy. All battle groups report ready status, her tactical officer announced. Fleet composition: 48 capital ships, 126 destroyers, and 243 corvettes. Total personnel, approximately 90,000. Rodriguez nodded as she reviewed the tactical displays. This represented only the first wave of humanity's hidden military capacity. Similar fleets were assembling in 17 other locations throughout human space, each one commanded by officers who had trained for this moment their entire careers. Target selection? Her operations officer asked. The hegemony chose to begin this war by murdering families, Rodriguez replied coldly. We will end it by eliminating everyone responsible for that decision. Meanwhile, Commander Thek's fleet celebrated their easy victory at Haven's Rest by establishing orbital positions around 3 additional human colonies. The hegemony strategy called for rapid occupation of multiple settlements to prevent any coordinated human response. Their intelligence suggested that humanity lacked both the military capacity and the tactical coordination necessary for effective resistance. The Proxima Centauri system contained humanity's second-largest colonial settlement, with over 1 million residents spread across 4 planets and 16 orbital stations. Hegemony forces had positioned themselves to begin systematic bombardment of civilian targets, following the same strategy that had proven successful at Haven's Rest. Commander Thek reviewed his battle plans while his fleet prepared for the next demonstration of hegemony power. His 800 ships represented the largest alien military force ever assembled for a single operation. Victory seemed inevitable. The humans appeared without warning. Admiral Rodriguez's task force dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their ships emerging from jump points that should have been impossible to calculate. The hegemony's sensors detected the new contact simultaneously, but their tactical computers struggled to process the data they were receiving. Sir, we are detecting approximately 400 human vessels, Thek's sensor officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. This exceeds all intelligence estimates of total human military capacity. Thek studied his tactical displays with growing concern. The human ships were larger than expected, configured in formations that suggested advanced tactical doctrine, and approaching at speeds that indicated superior engine technology. Impossible, Thek muttered. Our intelligence networks have monitored human military development for years. They possess fewer than 300 ships total. Admiral Rodriguez opened communication channels to the hegemony fleet, her voice carrying the cold fury of someone who had seen the footage from Haven's Rest. Hegemony forces in the Proxima system. This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force. You have committed acts of terrorism against civilian populations. You have murdered children and families under our protection. You will now face the consequences of those actions. Commander Thek responded immediately, his confidence returning as he remembered his fleet's overwhelming numerical advantage. Human Commander, you are outnumbered 2-1. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Commander Thek, Rodriguez replied, her voice never changing tone. You are about to discover the difference between human restraint and human weakness. The battle began when Rodriguez's leading destroyers opened fire at maximum range. The hegemony's shields, designed to withstand conventional energy weapons, failed catastrophically when struck by human plasma charges that operated on principles the aliens had never encountered. Thek watched in horror as his first line of battle simply ceased to exist. 16 hegemony cruisers vaporized in the opening salvo, their debris clouds expanding rapidly as additional human weapons found their targets. Return fire, Thek ordered desperately. All ships, maximum engagement! The hegemony's response revealed the fundamental flaw in their tactical doctrine. Their ships had been designed for honorable combat between fleets of similar capability, with weapons intended to disable rather than destroy. Human military philosophy had developed along entirely different principles. Rodriguez's corvettes moved like hunting wolves, using speed and coordination to isolate individual alien ships before destroying them with focused fire. Her destroyers provided covering fire while her capital ships eliminated enemy command vessels with surgical precision. Within 12 minutes, the hegemony fleet had lost over 200 ships. Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from multiple enemy vessels, Rodriguez's communications officer reported. Denied, Rodriguez replied immediately. Haven's Rest received no mercy. Neither will they. Commander Thek's flagship shuddered under repeated impacts as human forces concentrated their fire on his command ship. Around him, his bridge crew struggled to maintain basic systems while their fleet disintegrated around them. Emergency transmission to Hegemony Command, Thek ordered. Human military capabilities have been catastrophically underestimated. They possess advanced technology and tactical doctrine, far beyond our intelligence assessments. His transmission ended when a human plasma torpedo struck the inevitable Victory's reactor core. The explosion could be seen from the surface of Proxima's second planet, a brief new star that marked the end of the hegemony's largest military formation. Admiral Rodriguez observed the destruction with professional satisfaction. In 18 minutes, the human fleet had eliminated 800 enemy ships while losing only 3 corvettes to lucky shots. The technological and tactical advantages were even greater than their most optimistic projections had suggested. All ships prepare for jump to secondary targets, Rodriguez commanded. We have 14 more hegemony battle groups to eliminate before they can regroup. Similar scenes played out across 6 star systems as hidden human fleets emerged to destroy alien forces that had positioned themselves to threaten human colonies. The hegemony's military doctrine, based on overwhelming numerical superiority and technological advantages, collapsed when confronted with an enemy they had never truly understood. On the Maritime Alliance homeworld, Admiral Kess received fragmented reports from multiple battle zones. Her aquatic species had contributed significant forces to the hegemony's campaign, confident that primitive human technology posed no serious threat to their advanced military formations. How many ships have we lost? Kess asked her intelligence coordinator. Preliminary reports indicate complete destruction of battle groups Alpha, Delta, and Gamma, the coordinator replied, his voice trembling through the water-filled communication system. Admiral, that represents over 1,500 vessels. Kess felt her confidence drain away as additional reports arrived. Human fleets were appearing throughout hegemony space, destroying military installations, command centers, and any ship carrying the officials responsible for authorizing the Haven's Rest massacre. What are they? She whispered to herself. Admiral Rodriguez would have answered that question simply. They were a species that had tried to warn the galaxy about the consequences of threatening their families. Now that diplomacy had failed, they were showing the aliens exactly what apex predators could accomplish when their children were murdered. The hegemony had wanted to see human military capabilities. They were getting their wish, one destroyed fleet at a time. Chancellor Brix paced frantically in his heavily fortified bunker beneath the Dominion capital city, watching tactical displays that painted an impossible picture of military disaster. In less than 72 hours, The mighty hegemony had lost over half of its combined military forces to an enemy they had dismissed as primitive and weak. The latest reports defied everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare itself. Human forces were not simply defeating hegemony fleets. They were hunting down individual commanders, targeting specific installations, and systematically dismantling the political structure that had authorized the Haven's Rest massacre. "Sir, we are receiving reports from the crystalline sector," his military advisor announced nervously. "Human special forces have infiltrated the Silicon Collective's primary data centers. They have downloaded complete records of every official who voted to approve military action against human colonies." Brix felt his blood chill as he comprehended the implications. The humans were not conducting a traditional military campaign focused on territorial objectives or strategic resources. They were conducting a targeted extermination of everyone connected to the decision to murder human families. Representative Gek of the Silicon Collective had been among the loudest voices calling for human subjugation. His mechanical form provided perfect protection against biological threats, environmental hazards, and most conventional weapons. It provided no protection against human ingenuity. The infiltration team had bypassed every security system in the Collective's central facility using techniques that the mechanical species had never anticipated. Instead of attacking the facility directly, the humans had studied Silicon Collective technology for years, learning exactly how their artificial forms functioned and how they could be disabled. Jack's consciousness transferred between multiple backup bodies as human operatives systematically destroyed each one. The mechanical representative experienced something his species had never felt before: genuine terror. His final transmission to the hegemony leadership consisted of a single repeated phrase: "They know everything. They know everything. They know everything." Admiral Kess attempted to coordinate the Maritime Alliance's remaining forces from her underwater command center on their homeworld. The facility had been constructed in the deepest ocean trenches, protected by natural barriers that made conventional attack impossible. The humans found a way. Instead of attempting direct assault, human forces had spent months mapping the ocean currents and studying the aquatic species biology. When they struck, they introduced carefully engineered toxins into the water supply that targeted only Maritime Alliance physiology. Admiral Kess died in her own command center, surrounded by water that had become poison. Chancellor Brix received each report with growing horror. The humans were demonstrating capabilities that suggested decades of preparation for this exact scenario. Every hegemony strength had been studied, analyzed, and countered. Every alien leader responsible for authorizing the civilian massacre was being systematically eliminated. "How is this possible?" Brix demanded of his intelligence chief. "Our surveillance networks monitored human activities for years. We detected no preparations for this level of military capability." His intelligence chief, a nervous creature whose species specialized in information gathering, consulted data streams from across the galaxy. "Sir, preliminary analysis suggests that humans have been conducting deliberate deception operations for at least 15 years. Every technological demonstration, every military exercise, and every diplomatic exchange has been carefully managed to hide their true capabilities." The revelation struck Brix like physical blow. The hegemony's entire strategic assessment had been based on information that humans wanted them to believe. Every decision, every calculation, and every plan had been built on a foundation of lies that humanity had maintained with perfect consistency. Representative Noth of the Crystal Confederacy discovered the extent of human preparation when teams arrived at his homeworld carrying weapons specifically designed to shatter crystalline structures. His species had evolved natural defenses against energy weapons, kinetic impacts, and environmental threats. They had no defense against sonic frequencies precisely calibrated to their molecular composition. The attack on the Crystal Confederacy homeworld lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it ended, every member of their governing council had been reduced to glittering dust scattered across their capital city. The humans left behind a single message etched into the surviving walls: "Haven's Rest remembers." Chancellor Brix watched his alliance crumble as species after species either fell to human attacks or withdrew their support from the hegemony entirely. The Aquatic Federation had declared neutrality after Admiral Kessa's death. The Silicon Collective had gone completely silent after losing their entire leadership structure. 3 smaller species had formally surrendered and were actively cooperating with human forces. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Admiral Rodriguez," his communications officer announced with barely controlled panic. Brick straightened his massive frame and tried to project confidence he no longer felt. "Put her through." "Admiral." Rodriguez's image appeared on the display, her expression showing the same calm professionalism she had maintained throughout the campaign. Behind her, tactical displays showed human fleets positioned throughout former hegemony territory. "Chancellor Brix," she began without preamble, "you have lost approximately 70% of your military capacity. Your alliance is dissolving as member species either surrender or face extinction. You have one opportunity to end this conflict before it reaches your homeworld." Brix felt his pride warring with his growing fear. "What are your terms?" "Complete and immediate withdrawal from all human space," Rodriguez replied. "Reparations for the Haven's Rest massacre, to be paid by every species that participated in or authorized the attack. Dissolution of the hegemony military alliance and acceptance of human oversight for any future military actions in this sector." The terms represented total surrender and the end of everything the hegemony had built over centuries of expansion. Brix looked around his bunker at the few remaining advisors who had not already fled the capital. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Admiral Rodriguez's expression never changed. "Then, in approximately 6 hours, human forces will arrive at your homeworld and demonstrate exactly what happened to every other leader who chose to murder human families." The transmission ended, leaving Brix alone with his thoughts and the growing sound of explosions from the city above. Human special forces had apparently reached the surface and were systematically destroying every facility connected to the hegemony's military command structure. His personal security chief approached with obvious reluctance. "Sir, we are detecting human infiltration teams throughout the capital. They appear to be targeting government buildings and military installations." Brix realized that the humans were not coming to negotiate. They were already here, moving through his capital city with the same precision they had demonstrated throughout the campaign. The bunker that had been his sanctuary was about to become his tomb. "How did they find us?" he asked desperately. "Sir, they seem to know the location of every classified facility, every secret base and every hidden installation across hegemony space," his security chief replied. "They have intelligence files that exceed our own knowledge of our territory." The truth finally struck Chancellor Brix with devastating clarity. The humans had not simply hidden their military capabilities. They had spent years studying every aspect of hegemony society, mapping their weaknesses, identifying their leaders, and preparing detailed plans for this exact moment. David Carter's warning echoed in his memory. "You will discover aspects of humanity that we have worked very hard to keep buried." The diplomat had been trying to protect them from this fate. Every negotiation, every compromise, and every peaceful solution had been an attempt to prevent the galaxy from learning what humans became when their families were threatened. The bunker's lights flickered and died as human forces cut the power supply. Emergency systems activated, casting eerie shadows across the command center. Brix could hear his remaining staff evacuating through emergency exits, leaving him alone with the consequences of his decisions. His final transmission to the scattered hegemony forces was broadcast on all frequencies. "To all surviving hegemony commanders, this is Chancellor Brix. Accept human terms immediately. Do not let pride destroy what remains of our civilizations. We have learned what apex predators are capable of when sufficiently motivated." The transmission ended when human operatives breached the bunker's final defenses. Chancellor Brix had approximately 30 seconds to contemplate the true meaning of David Carter's warnings before discovering personally what happened to leaders who authorized the murder of human children. Above the surface, the Dominion capital burned as human forces systematically dismantled the infrastructure that had supported the hegemony's military expansion for over 2 centuries. The message was clear. This was the price of threatening humanity's families. The few surviving alien leaders throughout the galaxy received this message with perfect clarity. The humans had shown remarkable patience and restraint for 5 years. Now they were showing the galaxy what lay beneath that restraint, when diplomacy failed and their children were murdered. The age of hegemony dominance was over. The age of human reckoning had begun. The Grand Assembly Hall looked vastly different than it had 3 months earlier. Half of the elevated platforms stood empty, their former occupants either dead or no longer possessing governments capable of sending representatives. The magnificent chamber that had once housed 12 proud alien civilizations now echoed with the nervous whispers of 6 surviving species. David Carter walked through the same massive doors he had entered as a desperate diplomat trying to prevent a war. Today, he returned as the representative of the galaxy's new dominant power, carrying terms that would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. The remaining alien representatives watched his approach with expressions ranging from fearful respect to barely concealed terror. They had spent 3 months receiving reports of human military capabilities that defied everything they thought they understood about warfare, technology, and strategic planning. Admiral Kess's replacement, a younger Maritime Alliance representative, named Commander Flo, shifted nervously in her water-filled speaking apparatus. Her species had lost their entire military leadership and most of their fleet to human forces that seemed to appear and disappear at will. The Silicon Collective's new representative was a hastily constructed artificial intelligence that had been programmed with basic diplomatic protocols. The original governing council had been systematically destroyed by human operatives who understood their technology better than they did themselves. David took his position at the center of the chamber, carrying the same briefcase he had brought to his final diplomatic warning. This time, however, the document inside represented terms rather than negotiations. "Honorable representatives," he began, using the same respectful tone he had maintained throughout 5 years of fruitless diplomacy. "We gather today to formalize the new relationship between humanity and the surviving members of the former galactic hegemony." The phrase "former" galactic hegemony sent visible shudders through several alien representatives. The mighty alliance that had ruled this sector of space for centuries no longer existed as a political entity. David opened his briefcase and removed a data pad containing the terms that President Walsh and Admiral Rodriguez had developed during their systematic dismantling of alien military power. "The document I am presenting today contains non-negotiable terms for the cessation of hostilities and the establishment of lasting peace in this sector," David continued. "These terms have been formulated based on the actions taken by your governments during the recent conflict." Commander Flo activated her translation system with obvious reluctance. "Ambassador Carter, the Maritime Alliance wishes to express our regret regarding the events at Haven's Rest. We were misled about human capabilities and acted based on incomplete information." David turned to face the aquatic representative with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the conflict. "Commander Flo, 3,000 human civilians were murdered by forces operating under your government's authorization. Children were specifically targeted to maximize psychological impact. Your regret, while noted, does not address the consequences of those actions." The chamber fell completely silent as David activated the room's main display system. Holographic images appeared showing the current state of former hegemony territory. The data painted a comprehensive picture of human military dominance that left no room for misunderstanding. "Human forces currently occupy or control 17 former hegemony worlds," David announced matter-of-factly. "Our fleets maintain positions throughout this sector, with the capability to respond to any military action within hours. The technological advantages demonstrated during the recent conflict remain fully operational." Representative Byte of the Silicon Collective processed this information through his artificial intelligence matrices. "Ambassador Carter, what assurances do our civilizations have that human forces will not continue offensive operations against our remaining territories?" David smiled slightly, the same expression he had worn when delivering his original warning months earlier. "Representative Byte, you have exactly the same assurances that the human colony of Haven's Rest had when they surrendered and requested mercy according to galactic warfare conventions." The implication struck every alien representative simultaneously. The humans were offering precisely the same level of protection that their civilizations had provided to human families. "However," David continued, his tone shifting slightly, Humanity has no interest in governing alien populations or administering foreign territories. Our terms focus on preventing any repetition of the actions that led to this conflict. He activated additional displays, showing the specific terms that each surviving government would be required to accept. The conditions were comprehensive and clearly designed to prevent any future military cooperation against human interests. First, complete withdrawal of all military forces from human space, including territories that were occupied during the recent conflict. Second, payment of reparations for the Haven's Rest massacre, to be distributed among the families of victims in the reconstruction of the colony. David paused, allowing the representatives to review the financial calculations. The amounts were substantial but not designed to destroy their economies entirely. Third, dissolution of all military alliance agreements that target or potentially threaten human settlements. Each species will be responsible for their own defense, without the option of coordinating against humanity. Commander Flo's species had built their entire military doctrine around alliance cooperation. Ambassador Carter, these terms would leave our civilizations defensively isolated. Exactly the same situation that humanity faced when you demanded our surrender, David replied calmly. The difference is that we offer you the same opportunity for peaceful coexistence that you rejected when we requested it. The Silicon Collective's representative processed the strategic implications with mechanical precision. Ambassador Carter, these terms essentially establish humanity as the dominant military power in this sector. David closed the datapad and looked around the chamber at the empty platforms where representatives of destroyed civilizations had once sat in arrogant confidence. Representative Byte, humanity tried for 5 years to establish cooperative relationships based on mutual respect and shared interests. We offered technological exchanges, trade agreements, and diplomatic solutions to every dispute that arose. He gestured toward the empty sections of the chamber. Your governments chose instead to demand our surrender, murder our families, and demonstrate that peaceful coexistence was impossible under your leadership. David walked slowly around the chamber's center, his footsteps echoing in the vast space as they had during his original warning. You asked what kind of species humanity represents, he said, addressing the question that Commander Flo had posed months earlier. We are the species that spent 5 years trying to prevent this outcome. We are the species that warned you repeatedly about the consequences of forcing us to defend our families. He stopped walking and faced the remaining representatives directly. Most importantly, we are the species that you taught not to trust diplomatic solutions when dealing with civilizations that view mercy as weakness. David returned to his original position at the center of the chamber. These terms will prevent future conflicts by ensuring that no alliance of alien species will ever again possess the military capacity to threaten human settlements. You have 48 hours to provide your government's acceptance. Commander Flo activated her communication system reluctantly. And if any government refuses these terms? David's expression never changed, but something in his voice reminded every alien present of Admiral Rodriguez's communications during the systematic destruction of their military forces. Then that government will discover what happened to Chancellor Brix, Admiral Kess, Representative Geck, and every other leader who chose to authorize the murder of human children. The representatives understood perfectly. The humans were offering them exactly one choice: accept the terms and survive, or reject them and join their former colleagues in death. The Silicon Collective's representative was the first to provide formal acceptance of the terms. The Maritime Alliance followed within hours. By the end of the 48-hour deadline, every surviving government had agreed to humanity's conditions. David Carter transmitted the final agreements to President Walsh and Admiral Rodriguez, then packed his briefcase for the last time. His diplomatic career was ending exactly as he had feared it would, with humanity's true nature revealed to a galaxy that had refused to listen to his warnings. As he prepared to leave the Grand Assembly Chamber, the surviving alien representatives sat in stunned silence, contemplating their new reality. They were no longer the dominant powers in their sector of space. They were the survivors who had learned too late what happened when apex predators were forced to defend their young. The age of human restraint was over. The age of human dominance had begun, and it had all started with a simple warning that they had dismissed with laughter.